Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the Grand Bazaar in Tehran. Usually, it is a labyrinth of noise, merchants shouting, carts rattling, and the smell of spices filling the air. It is the economic heart of Iran. But today, it is silent. The shutters are down. The lights are off. For the first time in generations, the merchants, the traditional backbone of the state, have walked away. And as the silence in the market grows, the roar on the streets becomes deafening. This isn't just another protest. This is the moment the world has been waiting for, and the Iranian regime has been dreading. The 2026 revolution is here. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, and today we are breaking down the seismic shifts currently tearing through the Islamic Republic. If you have been following the news over the last 2 weeks, you know the headlines are chaotic. Internet blackouts, IRGC deployments, and a death toll that is climbing into the thousands. But why now? Why is 2026 the year that the invincible regime finally hit a wall it couldn't climb over? Today, we're going to look past the smoke and the sirens to understand the 3 pillars of this uprising: the economic collapse, the leadership crisis, and the unprecedented unity on the streets. By the end of this episode, you will understand why analysts are saying there is no going back to the old Iran. Let's start with the spark. Every revolution needs one. In 1979, it was a mix of social and religious fervor. In 2022, it was the tragic death of Mahsa Amini. But in early 2026, the spark was something even more primal: hunger. Over the last year, the Iranian rial didn't just lose value, it evaporated. We're looking at food inflation hitting an eye-watering 70%. When the price of bread and eggs doubles in a single week, the social contract doesn't just fray, it snaps. I was reading a report this morning about a shopkeeper in Isfahan. He said he spent his whole life staying out of politics. He survived the 2009 Green Movement and the 2022 protests by keeping his head down. But when he could no longer afford to stock his own shelves, he realized that keeping his head down wouldn't save him from starving. This is the Bazari factor. For decades, the merchant class was the silent partner of the clergy. That partnership is officially dead. When the bazaar went on strike last week, it sent a shockwave through the halls of power that no amount of riot police could stop. Now, you might be thinking, haven't we seen this before? The regime always cracks down, and the protests eventually fade. And you're right to be skeptical. The Islamic Republic is a master of survival. But 2026 is different for a very specific, very human reason. The leadership is aging out. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is now 86 years old. Reports suggest he is increasingly frail, and the internal battle over who comes next has turned the government into a pit of vipers. While the streets are burning, the elites are busy stabbing each other in the back to see who will sit on the throne next. It's hard to project strength to the people when your own inner circle is falling apart. And then there is the regional context. Remember, Iran used to brag about its axis of resistance, but after the fall of the Assad regime in Syria back in 2024 and the heavy blows dealt to Hezbollah and Hamas over the last 2 years, Tehran finds itself alone. The billions of dollars they spent on foreign proxies didn't buy them security, it just bought them a very expensive front-row seat to their own isolation. Before we get into the heavy details of the current crackdown and the role of the exiled crown prince, I want to take a quick second to say thank you for listening. If you're finding this breakdown helpful, do us a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. It's the best way to help us keep bringing you these deep dives into the stories that actually matter. All right, back to the streets. On January 8th, the regime pulled its ultimate move: a total internet blackout. They wanted to turn the lights out so they could handle the problem in the dark. But here's the fascinating part. It didn't work.
In previous years, cutting the internet paralyzed the movement, but the Gen Z protesters of 2026 have grown up with this. They're using decentralized networks, satellite links, and old-school word-of-mouth tactics that the Revolutionary Guard simply wasn't prepared for. Even more shocking are the reports coming out of cities like Bushehr. We're seeing videos, verified by independent groups, of security forces actually retreating, not because they were outgunned, but because they refused to fire on their own neighbors. When the man in the riot gear realizes he's being ordered to shoot at his own cousin who can't afford rent, the loyalty of the army starts to dissolve. So where does this leave us? As of today, January 12, 2026, the situation is at a bloody impasse. The supreme leader has called the protesters saboteurs and foreign agents, a script we've heard 1,000 times, but no one is buying it anymore. Even state TV, in a rare moment of honesty, had to acknowledge that the economic grievances are real. To wrap things up, here's your 2026 revolution cheat sheet. First, this isn't just about social freedom anymore. It is a full-scale economic and political rejection of the system. Second, the traditional supporters of the regime, the merchants and the working class, have officially joined the youth on the front lines. And third, the regime is facing a perfect storm of a succession crisis at home and a collapsing influence abroad. We don't know if the regime will fall tomorrow or next month. Revolutions are messy and they're rarely fast. But what we do know is that the psychological barrier has been broken. The fear that held the Islamic Republic together for nearly 50 years has shifted. It is no longer the people who are afraid of the government. It is the government that is terrified of the people. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. It's a heavy topic, but understanding these shifts is the only way to make sense of the world we're living in. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next episode.